Hey everyone, this is Disc Junkie and welcome to the Dailies. So today we're actually going to do some cooking. This is primarily because, I got a comment on one of the previous videos where I asked people like, what would you like to see in the series? And one person said cooking. That's where the level that we're at. Like, I don't really take any suggestions for whether this is going. But cooking was a really good choice because it's something I very much enjoy. I essentially do all the cooking in this household. I mean, I have a girlfriend since many years, but she's not interested in cooking at all, which I'm fine with because I actually quite enjoy cooking. And so we have a lot of salad. We don't eat too much meat. We're not like straight up vegetarian. I mean, if we go out or something, I don't mind having like a chicken burger or whatever. Like, it's not like there's a no meat policy or anything, but a lot of the stuff we cook tend to be vegetarian. But in any case, today we are going to make something which is all vegetarian, and it's something that I've come to make a whole lot of during recent times because we essentially started eating a lot of salads. We're eating a lot of sort of beans and stuff like that, and this is sort of part of a whole thing which Anna is doing, which is like a fasting kind of thing, which I can't do, but regardless of which, we are going to make some hummus. And this is from a personal recipe of mine. I had honestly never really made hummus before, and so I started looking at like some basic recipes, and then it sort of evolved from that to the point where it is now. And so we're going to start off by looking at some of the ingredients that we're going to need. And I would also say that this is not like a traditional hummus recipe. Usually hummus will have something known as tahini, which is like the sort of sesame seed type base or a product that you use to get that sort of sesame seed flavor. And I've never really made hummus with that. I started out very basic, making like a garlic and chickpeas based kind of hummus, and then I just added more stuff, and now I ended up with this. So let's just go through the ingredients. You can see what we have. So first up, you will definitely need one of these blender things to mix everything. You're gonna need some regular salt. Then we got some paprika powder. And so this is not like chili powder. This is nothing strong. This is just paprika. So nothing really too spicy. Then we got black pepper. I like to use these sort of rough kind, like not the fine grind, whatever. So yeah, you can sort of see what this is like. It has the really big sort of pieces in it. Then we have some garlic, and this is just regular garlic. It's nothing too special. This is Sambal Oelek, which is something quite spicy. This is like sort of like a chili sauce or sort of paste type thing. You can get this in the, I don't know, like the Asian food section, I would assume. Then we have some olives. This is from a really cheap brand, but I think it works fine. And this is olives with sort of like pimiento stuffing in it. I don't know what it is, like sort of a tomato sort of paste. And you can use regular olives as well without the filling. It just makes me feel safer that there's actually pimiento in there and that hopefully all of the seeds are removed. Every now and then I will find a seed, or I sort of hear things rattling around in the machine. But then you'll just, see if you can sift it out. Otherwise, yeah, just eat it with a bit more caution than you're usually doing. And then in the back here, we got sun-dried tomatoes. These are in oil. And I think this is a really good brand. I've tried some different ones, but I feel that this one is the one that I prefer. And then we got the chickpeas over here. And so these are boiled chickpeas, meaning that they're not sort of particularly hard. You can actually just squash them with your fingers. You can usually get these like pre-boiled, and they come in a can and whatnot, so it's stuff that you can really easily have at home and they don't really go bad. But if you do boil them yourself, you can also buy them like in the dry form, which is what we do, and then you boil them, and when they're boiled like this, you will need to sort of do something with them because they're not going to stay fresh for too long. And people ask me like, what's the difference between a chickpea and a lentil? And that's actually pretty simple, because you see, no guy ever paid $50 to have a lentil on their face. And so then we got some regular household oil. I don't know what you call this. We use something known as rapeseed oil, and that's not because this is a particularly sort of funky oil that does a whole lot of cool lyrics or anything, but I don't really know what this is called. But you need your basic oil. You can use olive oil as well. I honestly think that this is a bit more luxurious, but this is like the basic sort of really cheap stuff. And just based on the fact that we do this so much, we decided to move over to this. But in the beginning, I did actually use olive oil. Now, you don't want to use like extra virgin olive oil. You want to use the regular mild olive oil. Otherwise, I think that the extra virgin stuff would be pretty much unedible because that's too sort of strong in the taste. But regular mild olive oil that you can use for like frying stuff, that's just a perfect thing to add to this if you want to. But if you want to go with the cheap stuff, that's fine too. And so one more thing you do need to add is, oh, fuck it. Okay, I totally forgot about this. So you will need a bottle of white wine vinegar. You don't need much of this. You essentially need 1 tablespoon per batch of hummus. So not a lot, but I realized that I'm actually almost out. But yeah, we will just have to do with this, even though it's sort of on the limit and I will definitely need to buy more. But yeah, this is also part of the recipe. And I think that is pretty much it in terms of the ingredients. We got something in the back here, but that's actually Steve's food. So yeah, you don't want to add dog food to this mix. I don't think that would be a good idea at all. So let's get started. And I'm going to turn on the light here just to get a bit of a better view. Now we're going to need some sort of measurements here. This one is a tablespoon. I think that's what it's called in America. And then we have a deciliter measurement thing. It's this much. So yeah, figure out what that is in American. So next up, we're gonna take the olives and we're just gonna sift these through one of these coriander things. Now, we're not gonna use the whole sort of batch of olives for a single batch of hummus. So I'm gonna be making a whole lot of hummus, but if you're just making like one batch, you essentially need, I think, roughly like 1 of these maybe. We'll see. I'll be adding that in a later step, so just keep that in mind that you don't have to empty the whole thing. So the first thing we are going to do is to put the chickpeas in the blender. Now I tend to do this and add like 6 full deciliter. So this is for a single batch. So next up, we can add the olives, yes, as we've already prepared these. So here we got the olives. And so, I mean, I have a recipe for this, but I tend to just do this sort of on the fly. I don't really measure it too much, but that is essentially how much you want. And so I would say roughly that this is about 1 deciliter worth of olives. So a little bit more, but roughly 1 deciliter. Now we're gonna move on to the garlic. So I like to use like 4 pieces of garlic. When I say pieces, this is essentially what I'm talking about. So here we got 4 pieces. So next up, I'll just go ahead and I'll peel these just using a regular knife and a cutting board. So pretty easy to remove the sort of like outer shell. So now we got our 4 pieces of garlic in the blender and we are going to move over to the sun-dried tomatoes. Now these are obviously laying in oil, so you don't want to get too much of this oil into the mix. We are going to add oil anyway. But so what I like to do is I just take a fork like this, sort of lift it up, tend to sort of leave it running a little bit so you get some of the oil off, then just add this into the mixer. Okay, so this is how much I've added. I would say that there is maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15. So something like between 10 or 15 pieces. Like if you really like the flavor, go up to 20, but yeah, something like 15 pieces of sun-dried tomato in there. So that's essentially what we got. Next up, we move over to the spices, and so we are going to add some regular salt. So just too much, just a little bit like that. Then we get to the pepper, also just a little dash of pepper, depending on how strong you want it. But remember that we will also be adding the sambal, which is really spicy, so you don't really need to add too much spices as far as the salt and pepper go. Or at least not the pepper, because that is the spicy one. The rest are just essentially to get a specific sort of flavor nuance. Now I want to add the paprika powder, and for this one I will say that I tend to add quite a lot, and I'll just add this on like so you can see sort of how much I'm adding. But if you want to put it in like specific recipe terms, maybe like 1 tablespoon of paprika. And if you're talking like the other ones, then it's just like a dash of salt, a dash of pepper. But yeah, this is sort of like the level of paprika that I add, maybe a little bit more. So next up, we move over to the sambal. And in case you've never had this, you know, I really like to keep this at home. This is like a nice little spice up kind of paste or mix. It's very tomato based. You can see that there are some chili seeds in there. And this is something to use in your cooking. Just add to, like, if you're doing something tomato based and you want to add a little bit more sort of, you know, sting to it, just add a little bit of this. And as far as this goes, you don't want to eat this just on its own. It is actually quite spicy, so don't like overdo it with the sambal. As far as this dish, I tend to add like maybe a batch like this, which could be, you know, one of those and one more, sort of like the same amount. So I would say generally that is not really a full tablespoon. Maybe like, depending on how much you enjoy spice, you may want to try with like half a tablespoon to begin with. But I would say maybe like, say 3/4 of a tablespoon. I think that's roughly how much I'm actually adding. And now I got some on the side there. So next up, we're gonna add the white wine vinegar. And like I said, I've actually ran out of this, but you will want a full tablespoon of white wine vinegar. So just add it in the mix. This is a little bit too little, but yeah, 1 full tablespoon if you're running by my original recipe. Now, you don't need this 100%. You can do without it, but it really does add like a sourness to the taste, which I think is really nice. And yeah, you can obviously try without it, but I really do think that you should add this because it does really complete the recipe as such. And now that we've added the white wine vinegar into the mix, we just have the oil left. And seeing as this is quite a big sort of jug of oil, I will actually need both hands to do this procedure, but you will want 8 tablespoons of oil in this mix. So I'm gonna go ahead and add 8 tablespoons into the mix, but I'll just do this off camera. So now we got everything in the blender. Here you can sort of see what the full mix looks like. I'm actually gonna just take a fork and sort of move the sort of spice mix batch thing down into the mix like so. But you don't really need to have to do anything else. You don't have to sort of move it around or whatever. Just add it to the blender. You put the blender cover on like so. And then we're just gonna hit the start button. And I'll just pause this for a little bit. And I'll try to do that just when I've started it, just to sort of move things around and sort of get things a little bit mixed up. Otherwise you may tend to see that like there's some stuff at the top which doesn't really get mixed. Yeah, you will have to mix it for quite a long time until that sort of gets into the rest of the mashup, so to speak. But then again, this all depends on your blender. But I try to do that with this one because this is just my general experience. So back with the lid, and then we mix it for a while more. I would say that's pretty much it, and I think I essentially let this run for as long as I'm actually mixing it, just so you can time it and see how much time I'm actually spending. But yeah, so here you can see you do have some pieces left, but it's not like this matters. And then I just like to sort of go ahead and move this around a little bit, and yeah. So yeah, this is essentially it. And I mean, you can decide yourself like how much you want to mix this. If you want like more of a chunkier vibe, not mix it as long. But I really like to mix it to the point where I get it to a very sort of smooth paste-like style. So here you can sort of see what it's like. So I'm just gonna go ahead and try this. Absolutely brilliant. So once you've scooped this up into a little bowl or a plastic dish or whatever, this is sort of like the amount that you end up with, just to get an idea of how much that is. Now, as far as how long you can keep this after you mix it up, I mean, we keep this store in the refrigerator, and I will say that I tend to make 4 of these batches at once, just because we eat a lot of it. And I think we go through a single batch in maybe like 1 week's time. So, I mean, based on my experience, you can probably keep this at least for like 3 or 4 weeks in the refrigerator and it doesn't go bad. But generally, just based on chickpeas, I would say that, I don't know, 1 week you're perfectly fine, 2 weeks you're probably perfectly fine, 3 weeks, I don't know, I'm not leaving you any guarantees, but I would probably eat it, and 4 weeks, yeah, give it a whiff, see how it feels, but I would probably down that shit anyway because it's so damn tasty. And so that's it for this little cooking session. As far as using this hummus, I think you can pretty much use it with everything. I mean, I will use it to put on like sandwiches, like you don't really need to add anything else, just some bread, butter, and a little sort of, you know, dash of hummus. We eat a lot in salad, like just have some boiled beans, some regular sort of tomatoes, onions, what have you, whatever you want in salad. Just add a sort of dash of hummus, mix it around, get a whole lot of taste from the sun-dried tomatoes. And so, yeah, but I mean, you can use it with anything. Just Google for hummus and see what to use it for. You can dip stuff in it if you have like just regular chips or whatever. And yeah, sky's the limit. So let me know what you think, if you made this, if it's tasty or whatever. I have no idea how this would rank in terms of like authentic hummus or whatever, but this is the recipe I use, and like every one of my friends who I give this to were like, this is like the best hummus ever. So let me know what you think, and leave a like or comment or whatever. I will also leave the full sort of recipe in the description in case you want to check it out. But that's it. Thank you for watching, and as usual, hope to see you all next time.